The metal cage creaked open. Inside, the girl didn't move. Her ankles were chained, her hands tied behind her back. A muzzle covered her mouth. The lights above were too bright, blinding. But the crowd below saw everything. She's lot 38. The auctioneer shouted, "Rare species, fresh, healthy." He smacked her thigh hard. 12 stones heavy, nice meat on her. The crowd laughed. Most of them were not human. Thick-skinned traders with red eyes. Some were old and drooling. Others wore sharp suits and scanned her like they were buying a machine. No one cared about her name. No one asked where she came from. They just looked at her body. One buyer licked his lips. "Turn her around." Another shouted, "Open the muzzle, let me see her teeth." But the auctioneer only raised her chin with a metal rod. "She bites," he joked. "That's why the muzzle stays." More laughter. Her eyes stayed on the floor. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She had learned not to cry. At the back of the hall, a human stood. He wore a dark jacket. Didn't speak. Didn't sit. Just watched. His eyes weren't like the others. Not hungry. Not amused. Just cold, calm. 5,000 credits. 1. Buyer shouted, 6,000. Another raised a hand. The price climbed. 8, 10, 11. The auctioneer smirked. "Worth every coin, gentlemen." Then suddenly, silence. A rough voice from the back, 3 times the last bid. Everyone turned. The human stepped forward. 33,000. The room fell quiet. No one topped it. The auctioneer looked surprised but pleased. "Sold. Lot 38 belongs to the human." The cage unlocked. Chains dropped. She was pushed forward barefoot and trembling. She expected a collar, a leash, a slap. Instead, the human pulled off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Can you walk?" he asked softly. She looked up for the first time. No one had asked her that before. She nodded slowly. They left the market. The lights behind faded. He didn't take her to a dark room or a transport cage. He took her to a small ship docked outside. The black market walls. Clean, quiet. Inside he gave her water. Real water. Not the drugged kind. Then food. Warm bread. Meat. Fruit. She waited for the trick. The demand. The touch. It didn't come. He handed her a blanket. Pointed to a bed in the corner. "Sleep," he said. "You're safe." She backed into the wall instead. Curled up on the floor. He didn't argue. Just walked to the control chair and sat silently. Hours passed. The engines hummed. She didn't sleep. She watched him from the corner. He wasn't watching her. Was this a game? A new kind of owner? One who waited? Her fingers touched the blanket. It was soft. Real. No one had treated her like this. Not since. She didn't even remember when. Later, he spoke again. "What's your name?" She stared. She hadn't heard that word in years. "Name?" He repeated. She opened her mouth. The muzzle was still tight. Her voice was hoarse. "Oh, Lee." He walked over gently and unclipped the muzzle. It hit the floor with a soft thud. She coughed. Her throat was dry. He knelt beside her. "You're not property anymore." Her lips trembled. "Liari." He nodded. "I'm Jace." Then he stood and walked away, like it was the most normal thing in the galaxy. She wrapped herself in the blanket, her mind racing. Why had he bought her? Why didn't he touch her? Why did he ask her name? She didn't understand this human. But for the first time in years, she wanted to. Cliffhanger. As the ship left the black market planet, Liari sat up and whispered a question into the quiet air. "Why me?" She didn't know he heard her, but Jace's eyes narrowed, and he said nothing. She woke up, confused. Not from pain. Not from hunger. Not from screaming, but from silence. Warm air filled the small ship. The blanket still covered her body. No chains, no collars. No eyes staring at her while she slept. She wasn't used to this kind of fear, the kind where nothing happens. Where was the hurt? Where was the order? Where was the punishment? She sat up quickly and saw the human sleeping in the pilot's chair, arms crossed, unmoving, peaceful. He hadn't come near her. For the first time in years, she had to decide what to do next. Not obey, not perform, just choose. Her legs shook as she stood. Her body still remembered beatings for wrong steps. But the ship stayed still. No alarms. No voice barking commands. She moved quietly toward the man. She stared. He wasn't ugly like some traders. His face looked hard, but tired, like someone who had seen too much and never talked about it. Then his eyes opened, calm, focused. He wasn't surprised. "You're up," he said. She froze. He stood and walked to a cabinet near the wall, pulled out a shirt and pants. "These might fit," he said, and set them down on a chair. "You can change. I won't look." She blinked. She thought she misheard. Where?" she asked in broken words. He nodded. "You don't have to. But I figured you'd want something better than that." He didn't even look at the rag still hanging off her. She waited until he walked away and faced the ship's console. Only then did she grab the clothes. Soft, clean. They smelled normal. She changed fast. Her hands were shaking the whole time. When she finished, he turned around, as if he knew. "You hungry?" he asked. She nodded. "A small one," he handed her. A food pack. She opened it carefully and took slow bites. Still no questions. Still no touches. Still no demands. He sat back in the pilot's seat, typing into the screen. Flight path, coordinates. He was working like she didn't exist. That scared her more than pain ever had. After a while she asked, "Why, you buy me?" His hands paused. "On the controls, because no one else saw you," he said without turning. "They only saw what you looked like. I saw the way you kept your eyes down. I've seen that before." Her voice trembled. "You want me later?" He finally turned. His face was serious, stern. "I didn't buy you to use you," he said. "I bought you to free you." She didn't understand. She had no space in her mind for that sentence. He stood again and walked to a small storage room. She followed quietly. Inside were spare blankets, tools, clothes, water packs. Everything organized. He handed her a small device. "This is a translator. Press here. It'll help you speak clearly." She looked at it like it was magic. She hesitated. "You trust me with this?" she asked. "I trust you to be human," he replied. "But I'm not human," she said. He shrugged. "You act more human than most people I've met." The words hit her like lightning. All her life, she was called a beast, an animal, a toy. But here, a man called her human. She walked back to the main room slowly, sat down on the floor beside the bed. Not on it, not yet. He returned to the console. Quiet. They stayed like that. No sounds except the engine. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. Then she whispered, "What's your name again?" "Jace, Jace," she repeated. It felt strange on her tongue, like something important. Night came. Or at least, the ship dimmed the lights. She didn't want to sleep, not because of nightmares, but because she was scared. This was one. Dream, a trap. Then she saw something that broke her even more. He had fallen asleep again, right there in the chair, arms crossed. Breathing steady, she stared at him for a long time. Then, slowly she got up, walked to him. Her voice was soft, small. "If you're not going to hurt me, why do I feel more afraid than ever?" He didn't answer. He was still asleep, or pretending to be. Cliffhanger. She sat beside him on the floor, curled up again. But this time, she placed her hand on his boot, just to feel something real. Jace hadn't asked where the scars came from, but they spoke anyway. The next morning, he found her sitting in front of the mirror, shirt half lifted, staring at her own back. Thin, angry lines ran down her spine, some old and faded. Others fresh. A whip had made those. She wasn't crying. She was just looking. He paused at the doorway, silent. She noticed him. Pulled the shirt back down. He didn't ask that, she didn't speak. But something passed between them. A cold truth, he knew. Now. And still didn't walk away. Breakfast was quiet. She ate faster now, not like an animal, but like someone who still expected the food to disappear if she didn't hurry. Jace handed her another plate. There's more. Her eyes darted to him. You always give, he shrugged. When I can. She stared and then asked, why didn't you ask about my back? He looked at her calm. Because I figured you'd tell me if you ever wanted to. She blinked fast. Her lip trembled, but she bit it hard and looked down. Later, while Jace was working on the ship's controls, she stood behind him, quiet. Close. Then, almost too soft to hear, she said, they punished me when I refused. He didn't turn. He let her speak on her own terms. I was trained to entertain. Please, perform. If I said no, the whip. If I said yes, the chain. Her hands shook. I don't know which was worse. Jace listened. Still didn't face her. I tried to run once, she continued. Didn't get far. They put a price on my head. Told others to bring me back, dead or broken. She breathed hard. I never got a name again after that. Jace finally turned. His eyes were soft but serious. You don't have to explain yourself. I want to, she said quickly. Why? Because you're not like the others, and that scares me. He gave her a small nod. Good, she frowned. Good? If you were comfortable this fast, I'd be worried. Trust doesn't grow in a day. That night, she didn't go to the floor. She stood near the bed, hesitating. Jace was already lying on a small mat beside the engine wall, wrapped in a worn blanket. She called out, You gave me the bed. Again. Of course. She hesitated. More. Then whispered, They trained me to share beds. He didn't move. They made me think that's what I was for. Still no answer. I don't know how to sleep without serving. Now he sat up. His voice was quiet but firm. Then let this be the first night you do. She stared at him, unsure if she should be angry or grateful. Both emotions burned inside her. But she nodded. Turned. Climbed onto the bed, fully clothed. Blanket pulled tight. And for the first time in years, she slept without being touched. In her dream, she was still in the cage. But when the door opened, it wasn't the buyer. It was Jace. And instead of pulling her out, he stepped inside. And sat down next to her. That was all. She woke up with tears on her face. She wiped them fast. Looked around. Jace wasn't in the room. Her heart raced. Was he gone? Then she saw a note on the table, written in basic script. Went outside to check fuel. Back soon. You're safe. She stared at the words. She wasn't used to someone telling her anything. She wasn't used to being left behind. And not sold. When Jace returned, she was waiting at the door. He raised an eyebrow. Something wrong? She looked at him, really looked, and asked, If I said I wanted to stay, even after I'm free, would that be allowed? Jace looked. Surprised. But not unhappy. He nodded. You can stay as long as you want. Or go, if you ever choose. She whispered, I don't know how to choose. He replied, Then I'll wait until you do. Cliffhanger. That night, she took off her shirt, not to offer herself, but to show her back, and she asked, Can you tell me if these marks make me ugly? Jace looked at them. And said one word, No. Asterisk. She stood in the doorway, wearing nothing but her shame. The blanket hung loose around her body. Not to tempt him, but to show him. Show him what she was taught. What they forced her to be. Her eyes didn't hold seduction. They held fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being seen. Fear that he might look away. Or worse, accept her. Jace didn't move. She stepped closer. "I was trained for this," she said quietly. "Since I was a child, every move, every sound, every way to breathe was programmed to please someone else." Jace still didn't speak. "I was told that if I refused, I would be beaten. If I accepted, I would survive." She dropped the blanket. It hit the floor like a body. She didn't cry. She stood still like a soldier waiting for a command. "I don't know how to be anything else," she whispered, "but I can learn. I want to learn if you just teach me." Silence. Then Jace got up slowly and walked to her, not close, just enough for her to see his eyes clearly. "I'm not here to teach you how to be a woman," he said. "I'm here to remind you that you're already a person." He took off his own jacket and placed it over her shoulders, her hands clenched. The fabric tightly. She sank to her knees, but he knelt too. Not to claim her, to show her she wasn't beneath him. Later that night, she sat by the small window of the ship, watching stars move slowly past. She spoke again, voice calm but heavy. "They made me wear collars with built-in pain chips. Every time I hesitated, they pressed a button." Jay said nothing, just listened. "They said I had a natural body good for sale. Better than synthetics." She chuckled without humor. "They used to weigh us like meat, brag about our pounds. I used to eat extra just to look more valuable." Her hand touched her stomach, ashamed. "They told me I was a product." Jace leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "They lied." Then, "What am I?" she asked. He looked her in the eyes. "Free." She shook her head. "That's just a word. I don't know how to live like that." "Then start small," he said. "Eat when you're hungry. Speak when you want to. Sleep where you feel safe." She laughed bitterly. "That's hard." He replied, "Freedom usually is." She sat, quiet for a while, then asked, "Why didn't you want me?" His eyes didn't flinch. "Because you're not a thing to want. You're a life to protect." Her heart beat faster at that. She wasn't sure if it was pain or something else. She looked down. "I don't think I know how to be anything more than what I was made for." He stepped closer, knelt beside her. "You weren't made for them," he said. "They broke something that was never theirs." He gently placed his hand over her heart, not touching skin, just over the fabric. "This is still yours." That night, she asked him to sit beside her while she slept, not because she feared monsters, but because his presence made the quiet feel less empty. He agreed. Sat in silence until her eyes closed. And even then, he stayed. But danger was getting closer. Outside. The ship, in the black markets and hunter networks. Her face had been marked stolen property. And Jace had been marked wanted. Someone wanted her back. And they were willing to pay. Or kill. Cliffhanger. In the deep dark of space, a small tracking device lit up. Her collar, long forgotten. In the ship's storage bay. Blinked once. Then twice. A signal had been sent. And someone had received it. The collar was supposed to be dead. It had been thrown into the bottom drawer of the storage unit, behind spare parts and old tools. But even dead things can whisper. If someone's still listening, and someone was. Red light blinked once. Then again, a signal bounced across the stars, and landed where monsters lived behind desks. In a dark office far from any law. A slug-like traitor stared at the flashing alert. Lot 38. Double quote, he hissed, his voice thick with mucus and greed. "She's still breathing." He slammed his fist on the desk. "Send a hunter." Back on Jace's ship, Liari didn't feel the signal. But she felt something else. A shadow. Heavy. She couldn't explain it. But she woke up with her heart pounding in her chest. She stepped into the cockpit where Jace was drinking from a metal cup. "Something's wrong," she said. He looked up. "What do you mean?" "I don't know, but I feel it." Jace nodded. "You're not wrong." He held up a small scanner. The screen flickered. "There's a tail, not close, but someone's." following our jump trail. Her throat tightened. Is it them? Maybe, he said. I scrambled the trail twice already, but whoever it is, they're skilled. She felt her knees weaken. I can run, she whispered. Just drop me somewhere, I'll hide. Jay stood fast. His voice turned sharp. You're not running. You're not going back, not while I'm alive. She stared at him. Why would you risk your life for someone you don't even know? He stepped closer. I know enough. Hours later, the ship entered a silent sector near a red gas moon. Jace cut the engine. Everything went dark. A hunter's ship appeared in the distance, sleek, fast, built for capture, not kill. Liari watched through the small screen. They're scanning us, Jace said. What now? We wait. For what? For them to make a mistake. Minutes passed. Then, a knock-dot, not on the outer hull, not a laser blast. Not an explosion, a knock. At the ship's side door. Soft. Polite. Jace frowned. He picked up his weapon. He walked to the door and opened it. A man stood there calm, well-dressed. He didn't look like a bounty hunter. He looked like a diplomat. I come with a message, the man said, smiling. From her previous owner. Jace said nothing. She was stolen. We have documents, legal claims. We ask you return her peacefully, and you'll be paid double what you spent. Liari stepped behind Jace, eyes wide. The man smiled at her. Hello, pet. Miss me? Jace's gun was up in 1 second. Get off my ship, the man sighed. You don't want trouble. I already have it, Jace said. Now walk, or be carried. The man glanced once more at Liari, then turned. You can't hide her forever. He left. As the ship's door sealed shut. Liari collapsed onto the floor. Jace knelt beside her. I told you, she whispered. They always come back. Let them. She looked up, eyes full of fear. They'll kill you. Then I'll kill first. That night, Jace set traps across the ship's system. Shock pulses, anti-tracker bursts, autogun overrides. Liari sat beside the control panel, holding one of his pistols. Do you know how to use it? He asked. She shook her head. No, but I'll pull the trigger anyway, he smiled. Good enough. The hunter ship stayed in orbit, watching, waiting. Jace didn't sleep. Neither did she. They sat in silence, not like before. The silence was sharp, ready. And then the lights flickered. A breach alert flashed red. They're coming, Jace said, rising with his weapon. Liari stood too, but this time she didn't tremble. Cliffhanger. As the first door burst open and smoke filled the hall, Liari whispered, If I die today, at least I'll die free. And behind her, Jace replied, Not today. Asterisk, she never thought her name would be spoken. In a courtroom, she thought her name would be erased, forgotten, replaced with a number, a barcode, a price tag. But now, she was standing in front of a galactic judge, and the room was silent. A few days earlier, they'd escaped. Not easily. Jace's ship had been hit twice. Smoke filled the engine bay. He'd taken a knife across the ribs. She had fired a weapon. For the first time in her life, her hands shook so badly afterward. She dropped the gun, but they survived. And Jace took her to a planet she'd never heard of, where freedom wasn't just a word. It was law. There, he met with someone called an advocate, a woman with silver eyes and a voice like steel. She looked at Liari and said, You want to be recognized as a citizen, not a product? Liari couldn't speak at first. She just nodded. Now she stood in that courtroom. No chains, no muzzle, no collar. Just her. In clothes she chose, wearing a name she gave. Liari. The judge was an old creature, wrinkled and slow, but kind. He reviewed her file on a glowing screen. Her body had been scanned, her identity cross-checked, her past documented in painful detail. Are you aware? The judge asked, that you are considered lost property under black market trade laws? Liari nodded. Yes. Are you aware that you were bred and sold under illegal practices? Again, she nodded. Yes. The judge leaned forward. Then I ask you this, what are you now? Silence fell. Everyone in the chamber watched her. She could feel their eyes, but she didn't flinch. She stepped forward, voice strong. I am not weight. I am not value. I am not product. Her eyes locked on the judge's. I am life. The judge stared at her for a moment, then smiled. Then, life you shall have. The stamp echoed through the room. Status, free citizen planet of record, Naira 4 identity. Liarish turned to look at Jace. He gave a slow, proud nod, but her knees gave out anyway. Not from fear, but from something heavier. Relief. Later, outside the courthouse, she sat on a bench under a pale sun. Jace sat beside her, bandage across his side, hands resting in his lap. You did it, he said. She shook her head slowly. You did it. No, he said. I just opened the door. You walked through it. She smiled for the first time. It was small, but real. They walked through the city, clean streets, open air, no patrol bots or slave scanners. No collars. People didn't stare. Or if they did, they looked with curiosity, not hunger. She saw children playing, old couples laughing, market stalls shouting prices not for people but for food, and she realized this was a world she never thought existed. That night, back at the small shelter Jace had rented, she stood in front of him. I have something to ask, she said. He looked at her calm. Go ahead. She took a breath. I'm free now. That means I can go anywhere, he nodded. Yes, but I don't want to go. He raised an eyebrow. No? She stepped closer. I don't know what love is, but I think maybe it feels like this. Jace didn't speak. She smiled shyly. So, I want to ask, can I stay? Not because I owe you, but because I want to. He stared at her for a long moment. Then walked forward and took her hand. You were never mine to keep, he said. But if you want to stay, I'll never ask you to leave. Cliffhanger. In the quiet of the room, she leaned in, placed her forehead against his chest, and whispered, if I was sold by weight, you made me feel priceless. But outside, in a distant system, her old owner wasn't done yet, and he had just placed a bounty on both of their heads. Freedom didn't come with fireworks. It came with silence. No chains, no voices telling her what to wear, no hands grabbing her body, no cages, no buyers. Just choices. That's what scared her most. Because for the first time in her life, Liari had no orders. And the first real choice she made was to knock on his door. Jace. He opened it in a half second, hand instinctively near his sidearm, but when he saw her, he relaxed. She was standing in the hallway, holding a small bag of clothes in one hand and a paper in the other. I rented my own room, she said. He looked confused. I thought you were going to stay in the housing center. I changed my mind. He smiled slightly. Already making use of your freedom? No, she said softly. I'm learning what it feels like to miss someone. She walked past him into the small unit, sat down on the couch like it belonged to her. You're allowed to stay, Jace said with a smirk. But I'm still not giving up the bed. She raised an eyebrow. That depends on who claims it first. They both laughed. It was awkward. Beautiful. Human. Later that night, they sat side by side in the quiet, a warm drink between them. Liari looked out the window at the stars, then whispered, I want to tell you something. Go ahead, Jace said. I used to dream of being someone's treasure, not because I was shiny, but because I mattered. She looked at him. I didn't find a prince. I found a broken, stubborn, half-dead human with a ship that barely runs, he chuckled. Thanks. But you saw worth in me, she continued, and that made me believe I had it. He didn't respond. Because what could he say? She was already speaking the truth. Suddenly, the alert beeped. A red light blinked. On the side panel, Jace stood. Fast. What is it? She asked. He stared at the screen. Someone entered the system, he said. Encrypted ping. Not a traitor. Not a patrol. This is personal. Liari's face went cold. Is it him? Jace didn't answer. He reached into the drawer, pulled out 2 weapons, and tossed one to her. Stay behind me. She shook her head. Not this time. The door to the building blasted open 30 minutes later. Masked soldiers in black armor stormed the hallway, but they didn't expect her. She came down the steps like fire blaster in hand. Silent, precise. Jace covered her from the side. Together. They moved like partners. Like something greater than captor and saved. They were equals now. One of the intruders lunged at her. She ducked. Fired. He dropped. Hard. Jace looked at her in shock. Where did you learn that? She smirked, breathless. You think I was raised without learning how to survive? When the fight was over, the bodies lay quiet. Smoke hung in the air. They stood in the middle of it, side by side, breathing heavy. Liari looked at Jace and said, no more running. We end this. He nodded. You ready to hunt the ones who hunted? You? She replied. I'm ready to show them I'm not for sale anymore. A week later, their ship left orbit. Destination, the core of the black market. Mission, shut it down, but this time. They weren't going as fugitives, they were going as fire. Together. Final scene. In the cockpit, Jace piloted. Liari sat beside him, hands calm, eyes focused. She wore armor now light, flexible, her own. No chains, no branding. No marks of ownership, just scars and strength. She turned to him. I used to ask myself what I was worth, she said. He looked at her. And now? She smiled. Now I don't ask. I choose.